Go love your own enemies. Don't be loving mine. My enemies are the theocratic fascists. I don't love them. I want to destroy them.
Child made in the image of God. Oh no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman.
Well, my Christmas was pretty much non-existent. I woke up in the morning, nothing, no people to see, no cards in the mail, nothing to open. I wrapped the presents I got from my mother and went over to her house, and she loved them. So that was the part of the Christmas thing that I still get to have, is I get to enjoy my mother reacting to getting to see, you know, what I picked out. And sometimes it's not such a fun time, because sometimes she doesn't even pay attention. She's watching the TV. She's totally fixated on the TV, or she thinks I'm somebody else completely. But this year she seemed to be engaged in the whole Christmas opening ritual, present opening ritual thing, and she seemed to know who I was. So for a half hour, 45 minutes, it felt a little bit like Christmas, but otherwise it wasn't. It just isn't anymore. So I felt kind of like fine. I went out and got myself a couple things, because I found out on Thursday that I'm going to be going full-time at Metro. As of January 25th, I go back into training, and then I'm going to be working a lot more and having a lot less time to do anything. So I feel, but I'm going to have financially a less difficult road. So it's kind of like fine, you know. I felt kind of like left out. It's always really hard to see the wrapping paper in the garbage. People throwing their Christmas tree out. It's still Christmas Day and they're throwing the Christmas tree out. It's like, you have no idea. You have no idea what you have. You know, if I still had a Christmas, I would savor every moment. And I miss it. I miss everything about Christmas. I miss feeling like, you know, I've been good all year. Where's Santa? Why did Santa skip my house? I hate that feeling. It's a stupid little kid in me. But anyway, so my cousin wrote me a letter. She reached out to me. First she sent me a card, which was really sweet, and I wrote her and said, wow, what a cute family. What an adorable family. Thank you so much for the card. It was an email card, which I guess that's what we do now. And then she wrote me back, and she wrote, you know, all these things. She wanted to know what I was doing with my life, and she wanted to know more about me. So I wrote her back, and I wrote her a rather long note about, you know, my job and all my animals and my book and how I'm working on that. She wrote me a letter back, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but shortly into the letter she started witnessing. She started trying to save me, and it angered me. I didn't even finish her letter. I don't know what she wrote after the part about where she was witnessing to me, because I was just so angry and disgusted, and I felt like, you know, she lured me in, and then, you know, like a fish on the line, and then clubbed me over the head with something. That's how it felt. Anyway, I'm going to share what she wrote, and then I wrote 2 responses to her what she wrote, and I just wanted to share. Wow, I didn't know you had all those pets. What a menagerie. I am sorry you have battled depression. I understand you are in Seattle because your mother is there. Maybe someday you can come back to the state of Wisconsin where some of your family is. I apologize for saying I was your aunt too late at night. When you feel everyone has forsaken you, there is one who loves you very much and sees every tear. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I know your mother is a born-again Christian, as are my family and I. I am not going to preach to you or shove religion down your throat, but if you ever want to pray with me and give your life to Christ, just call me at... He is the only one who controls the destiny of our lives, not man. Reach out to him and draw near to him in your time of need. Behold, he makes all things new. He is the God of new beginnings. Like I said, she wrote more, but I didn't read. In fact, I didn't really read halfway through that paragraph either. Until I posted it on Facebook too with my response, because I was just really disgusted and angry. It's like people who refuse to accept me for who I am and who look at me like I'm broken and needing to be fixed. It was insulting and it made me angry. So the first email I wrote her was, I was a born-again Christian my whole life until 8 years ago. After my divorce, I realized just how much I assumed things were true or real all my life, and how very wrong I was about so many things. I then purged all false assumptions and beliefs from my life. After researching the origins of Christianity in the Bible, I realized I had assumed my whole life this 2,000-year-old con job was true. Very few things in my life have hurt me as much as the message Christianity tells people, and even little children, that you are born broken and deserving to be in a horrible place forever unless you repent being born broken and accept Christianity's cure-all. The one thing that will make you a good person, because you better believe you cannot be good or even know what love is unless you accept Jesus. Who, by the way, did not even exist at the time of the earliest Christians. He was invented decades later. I was not born damaged and in need of Christianity's fix-it-all. I was born exactly right the first time, and I have been a good person all my life. I was good before I became a Christian, during the 35 years I was a Christian, and now I am still a good person now that I can clearly see who I am and how awesome I am. No God required, no crutch needed. Michelle, I would love to be included in a family, but I have many atheist friends who were disowned from their loving Christian homes just because they were honest and expressed how they cannot believe gods exist. Apparently, they were deemed horrible, unacceptable people because they could not believe something. The Bible is not a history book. There is next to no actual history in it, and I refuse to believe stories in a fiction book are real. And that does not make me a horrible, unacceptable person, nor should I feel that I am broken or my life is incomplete because I cannot believe anymore in something I know now to be false. By the way, depression was in my life for as long as I have been a Christian. It isn't anymore. Atheism and coming out of years of living in delusion saved my life. Write me back if you can accept me for who I am, because I will never again go back to believing in what I researched and discovered are lies. P.S. I stopped reading your email when I got to the part about a fictional character loving me. I was not pushing my beliefs on you. Not sure why you felt you could do that to me. If Jesus is not a fictional character and is what Christians claim, God, well, take a look at what Jesus, as God, was doing in the Old Testament. The biblical God was a profoundly cruel and sadistic monster. Even if it did exist, I would not lower my standards of morality to worship it. So I wasn't quite over my anger after I wrote that first letter. Technically, I still am not really. So I wrote her a second one, and what I did was I copied and pasted her block of writing onto the reply, and then interjected my comments throughout her block of writing. And this is what I wrote her. This is her writing. When you feel everyone has forsaken you, there is one who loves you very much. In parentheses, I wrote, this is an assumption based on what your book says and what your religion teaches. It is not supported by any facts or testable, verifiable evidence whatsoever. She continues, and sees every tear. Parentheses, again, an assumption. She goes, Jesus, I put in parentheses, no evidence to show this person ever existed, and plenty to show he was invented decades after Christianity began, is the way, parentheses, assumption, the truth, parentheses, assumption, and the life, parentheses, assumption. And isn't it rather arrogant to assume your beliefs out of the thousands of religions there have been in human history just happens to be the only correct one? She writes, I know your mother is a born-again Christian. In parentheses, my mother is mentally ill. If she was not mentally ill and she knew I was an atheist now, I have no doubt she would flat out disown me. And she writes, as are my family and I, parentheses, I am happy for you and I accept you for your beliefs. Why can't you do the same for me? She writes, I am not going to preach at you, parentheses, except you just did, or shove religion down your throat. But if you ever want to pray with me, parentheses, why do you think I would want to pray to something I do not believe exists, and for which there is no evidence anywhere to show it exists? I am assuming, too, you refer to the biblical God, and not to Zeus, or Thor, or Mithras, or Attis, or Osiris, or Hercules, or Jupiter, or Pan, or Ra, or Krishna. How come you can dismiss all these other gods as fiction, parentheses, millions of people believed in them too, but think I should believe in your God who is nothing at all over any of these others? And then she continues, and give your life to Christ, parentheses, why would I do this when I know this is a fictional character invented by the early church? Just call me at... He is the only one, parentheses, assumption, who controls the destiny, parentheses, assumption, of our lives, not man. Reach out to him, parentheses, again. Why do you say this to someone who you know does not believe any of this? Sorry, this insults my intelligence. And draw near to him, parentheses. Again, you're talking about a character in a fiction book like it's a given he's a real person when there's nothing whatsoever to show he ever existed. In your time of need, parentheses, been there, done that. I had depression when I did, and now that I don't have depression anymore. Behold, he makes all things new, parentheses, assumption. He is the God, parentheses, which God do you mean? Of new beginnings, parentheses, assumption. Assumptions are all Christianity is. There is no testable, verifiable evidence to support even one of Christianity's claims. No evidence shows God's, any of the thousands there have been, exists. No evidence shows anything in the Bible actually happened. No evidence shows the Bible is inspired by any kind of deity. No evidence shows Jesus or any of the gospel fictional characters actually lived. No evidence for heaven. No evidence for hell or the afterlife in general. No evidence for demons or angels or Satan. No evidence that there is only one true way to get to heaven. You assume it's true because a book says. I was really excited that you reached out to me and seemed interested about my life. Now I just feel hurt. Your letter said very loudly to me that you see me as something broken that needs fixing, and that is not remotely who I am. I never was. So yeah, that was my letter to her. It's funny how she writes that Jesus sees every tear. And then you think of all the homeless people in the world. A lady on Facebook wrote under my post, her name is Colleen Q. Mills. Is she talking about the same God who has no problem ignoring continents full of people who die of starvation? Who can watch children slowly die in agony without lifting a finger to help? This all-powerful God who could simply blink and remove suffering from innocent people who have no help, is that the one she means? Who cares about every tear you shed and who loves you very much? Your cousin might think that God of hers is a love bug, but in the eyes of some people who have read the Bible and not skipped over the ugly passages, he sounds more like a roach. It's easy to be a Christian in the U.S. People in this country are able to ignore the suffering found in other countries. Yeah, like all the people with terminal illnesses that are languishing in agony and this God does nothing. I guess maybe the pain and suffering must be part of his divine plan, maybe. You know, and all those starving children, so many starving children, or children being held prisoner by their parents, or tortured, or not getting medical care because their parents are praying fervently to God to heal their children instead. And God does nothing. I guess she means that God. He sees every tear, but I guess he chooses to ignore them. Anyway, you know, when I'm down and I'm kind of depressed and bummed that, you know, Santa didn't come, or bummed that my cousin can't accept me for who I am and thinks I'm broken, when I'm really down in the dumps about stuff, I do weird things to cheer myself up. Kind of like this.
Now whip it! Into shape! Shape it up! Get straight! Go forward! Move ahead! Try to detect it! It's not too late to whip it! Into shape! Shape it up! Get straight! Go forward! Move ahead! Try to detect it! It's not too late to whip it! Whip it good!